I promised you all that I was going to ask a question that I wasn't going to tell you in advance. So when I read the book, I'm married and have been married for a while, been together 20 years. So I've done we get in an argument, neither one wants to admit that they're wrong. So we're just going to avoid each other in this house for 2 or 3 days until somebody comes and says, hey, let's talk. So what I want to know is not that conversation. Kiersten, I need you to explain the conversation after that conversation. Like, how did y'all get back together? I want to know how he came and said, can we talk? And you agreed to be like, yeah, all right, we can do this again.
It's so funny because he wrote me a little sticky note, and then he offered to we were working in the same office. So he left a little sticky note on my desk, and then we went to dinner at one of my favorite restaurants at the time, Papados. And that kind of eased me in. Like, you give me good food, I'm a lot more open to the conversation.
She'd do anything for some fried shrimp, right?
For the crab fingers, yeah.
Anything for a crab finger.
Put me in your next campaign, Papados. Which was big for him and big for me because it showed that he wasn't so extreme that he didn't understand my love for dating and just being social and being out and not stuck in the house all the time. But it also gave us a neutral place to talk about this. And to his point, there was a lot that I just hadn't put together. I didn't realize that I'm asking a former professional chef to go out and pay for food all the time. I didn't realize the burden that comes with being the male and being expected to cover the bill every single time, and how, it just doesn't, it wasn't this, I didn't see the ask the same way that he was feeling it. And we talked a lot about just kind of why the reaction was so strong. And he really pushed me on some of the assumptions that I was using about my financial plan. Like, why do you think you can always out earn it? Tell me what the future job's going to be. Where do you think you're going into an org chart? Now, this wasn't all over lunch. This this continued over the next couple of days. But he really broke through in terms of where my thinking was flawed. Like, we got to the point where he was bringing out org charts and saying, okay, so you think you're going to be a VP at Coca-Cola. Let's look at how many VPs at Coca-Cola actually look like you. And we're in Atlanta, so that shouldn't be a hard thing. But it helped me realize where I was using magical thinking instead of an actual plan to get what I wanted. He never said you can't have it. He never said, like, I'm not telling you not to eat out, but you certainly need some structure around the way that you're thinking. And I was the same way with him. Like, I'm not saying we have to eat out all the time, but I do want to feel like we're having an actual courtship, like we're actually dating and not just, two homies always hanging out at the house.
Yeah, and to be clear, I wasn't trying to tell her that she shouldn't be as ambitious. I was ambitious as well, but it was really about a sense of independence and being in control and just asking us to look at the moment that we were in a little differently. I think a lot of couples, and a lot of people I'm sure listening know how overwhelmingly exciting it can be when you get the job that you think is going to change everything. You feel like, oh my gosh, like this is the beginning of the story that I thought of and dreamed of. And here I am. I am a character in the movie that you've always envisioned yourself as, especially if it's a two-parent household. But what you don't really envision, because you don't have as many of these kinds of transparent conversations as you should with people who are older and who have been around the block, is that it does not work as a smooth 20 to 25 year of consistent earning of both people being promoted at the same time, and you always having like the math that we do in the beginning, where you got a ton of money left over. Everybody just naturally assumes that, oh, in 3 years I'll be at this level and you will too, and then we'll have even more. We never do the other math around how our cost of living in some cases either catches up or exceeds our earning potential, right? So we're just a little too bright-eyed and wildly optimistic when it comes to long-term earning potential. And for me, I said, if we're going to do that, we at least need to improve our odds. Yeah. We need to diversify the way that we earn income and put ourselves in control, as opposed to always relying on institutions or people that we do not know to determine our value. Like that made very little sense to me because I had no evidence to suggest that it was going to work out.
Which makes sense when you think about his immigration background. Like his parents didn't live through that era, mine did. And so I was passed down, the boomer logic passed down to me. And this is probably the last generation that got like the straight upward trajectory of the economy throughout their midlife and throughout their coming of age years. It was boomers. And so my parents told me, like, no, you just keep climbing. You just keep climbing the corporate ladder and the money keeps coming. It wasn't until I listened to someone, Julian's a little older than me. He's technically Gen X, or you're a cusper.
I'm a cusper.
Yeah. Gen X, millennials, certainly Gen Z, like none of us are experiencing the same straight up trajectory that boomers got to experience. This is what our like fourth financial crisis. Like I'm glad that he was the first person to say like, no, that hasn't happened since the 80s and 90s and since they were, you know, much older and much more established in their careers, because it's the thing that got me serious about saving during the good times so that you can make it until the rebound.